Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and welcome to another first look at a default aircraft in Flight Simulator 2024. Today we're going to fly the King Air C90. Developed by Coronado, it is the smallest of the King Air series, and that becomes especially evident when looking at it from the side. With only 3 windows, it just seems like something is wrong there with that aircraft, especially if you're used to something longer such as the King Air 350 from the default Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, or the version included in FS 2024. Now, we are currently at Mannheim Airport, which is a beautiful rendition of this airport available on flightsim.to. Really wonderful job they put into this. And we are going to fly over to Innsbruck, which is going to be a quick 45-minute flight in flight level 230. Now, the visual model of the King Air is absolutely beautiful. Let's go ahead and see if it looks just as beautiful on the inside. But first things first, we will have to remove the chocks, the engine covers, and last but not least also the pitot covers. Well, and with all of those removed, let's get into the aircraft and get ready for our flight. Now, on a small note here, finally we have an aircraft where the walkaround mode implemented by our Sobo is actually worth it. Alright, follow me inside and let's have a quick look at the passenger cabin. Typical Coronado, this is modeled in some absolutely beautiful detail. We are able to extend the tables and we are able to walk throughout the entire cabin, something that I really appreciate in FS 2020 compared to the old, or in FS 2024 compared to the older FS 2020. Now, the only thing that is not simulated is the toilet that we'd have over here if you fold that seat up, but I suppose we are gonna survive without a toilet on a 45-minute flight. So, looks like our colleague is actually in here and started preparing the aircraft for the flight already. We should probably just do the same, but first things first, the sun is so blinding in the front. Let me quickly get that sunshade down and block a little bit of that sun out. Alright, unfortunately there is no manual published for the King Air, so we kinda gotta make the procedures up on our own, but luckily it is not that complicated of an aircraft, so let's get right into it. The battery is coming on, then we can turn the nav lights on, quick check through our aircraft. So we do have sufficient fuel on board for the flight. The pumps are all off, the avionic master is off, and the rest of the switches are set. Alright, the only display that comes on by default is this one, because we do have the engine instruments on here. Alright, bleeds are off, and then... So, power levers idle, condition levers, or prop levers full forward, condition levers fuel cutoff, flaps up, and that's it. Alright, so I don't want to drain the batteries, so let's go ahead and start the engine straight away. The beacon light is coming on, and then we can turn our ignition and engine start on the right hand engine. So, starting right. Engine RPMs are increasing, and let's turn on the fuel. And we have ignition, the turbine temperature is coming up. You might notice that it is still pretty quiet in here, and that's something that I noticed with this aircraft as well. It is rather quiet with the engines running on the ground. It's only when the engines are running up to higher power levels where you actually get to hear them properly. They might just be simulating a headset over here, which is my best explanation to make it sound realistic. Alright, good start on engine 2, let's start engine 1. And over here, same thing, N1 is increasing, oil pressure is increasing. At 13% N1, we will add the fuel, like that. And here we go, ignition, propeller is spinning up. And that's looking like a good engine start on engine number 1 as well. As mentioned earlier, if we do imagine that we are wearing a headset right now, then, especially if it is a noise cancelling one, then the sounds may actually be realistic. But we'll talk a little bit more about the sounds as the flight comes along. Alright then, that's 2 good starts. The number 1 prop is increasing past the red range. And here we go. Alright, after start procedures. Generators on, avionic master on. Then the lights are set as needed, windshield anti-ice is on, pitot anti-ice coming on, and on the right hand side the bleed valves are coming on. The cabin temperature selector is unfortunately not modeled, which is a bit of a pity because I would kind of expect it to at least be in the auto position.
Test. Okay.
Checked. Alright, so COM1 we'll use 1 to 2.8 like that. COM2 1 to 1.5 going active. Transponder, since we are flying IFR, we'll use a squawk of 2000. And here's unfortunately another limitation of the aircraft. While we can set the squawk, we can't change the transponder mode. You can see the button down here is actually not simulated, so this is where I would turn the transponder on, but unfortunately no click spots over there. Well then, let's get down into the FMS, and for that let's get up our Navigraph charts as well, or much rather our Navigraph SimBrief dispatch, in which we have our flight plan. Okay, so initialize position, let's go. We'll use the GNS position, and then for the flight plan we're departing Echo Delta Foxtrot Mike with our destination Lima Oscar Whiskey India and the alternate in Salzburg Lima Oscar Whiskey Sierra. Our flight number is going to be our call sign Delta India Echo Mike India. And then we can execute that. Departures and arrivals. And they planned us off runway 27 today with the Rolls 3 Whiskey departure. Alright, execute, back to the flight plan, next page, and then we are flying via Zulu 54 towards Nombo, then Yankee 161. Did I take that? Nope. Okay. Looks like we do need to enter the waypoints here. Pretty sure in the real world unit you don't, but if that's what they want, that's what they get. Right, Yankee 161 to Manal. And then we continue via Mike 736 inbound to Tulsi. Alright, and then departures arrivals. Execute that. Index, arrivals. And we are coming in via the localizer approach runway 26 in Innsbruck with the Tulsi 3 Alpha arrival and the Rattenberg transition. Execute. Now let's have a quick look at our legs to see what we got. So let's bring up the Navigraph charts. And we can definitely pick a new flight over here. Import the latest from SimBrief, please. Here we go, Mannheim to Innsbruck. So, Rolls 3 Charlie departure is a left-hand turn onto 256 track, Fox Mike 050. Thereafter, Fox Mike 004, Fox Mike 005, and then via Renex above 5000, which we have in here, to Neckar, and then towards Rolso. Okay, keyboard input active. No, we don't want to do that. And the initial climb clearance is going to be 5,000 feet. We'll have a look at that in a few moments. Let's first head over to the performance in it. So we have 3 passengers on board, and our cruise flight level is going to be 230. Execute that, and onto the VNAV. Transition altitude is 5,000. Now, the speeds in here are a little bit funny. I have a feeling they just took them from the CJ4, which is where they inspired the aircraft. But I really have a feeling that those are, well, just CJ4 copies. This is nothing the King Air can achieve. So we'll do something like 160/0.35 or so. That's about the best the aircraft can do. And in the cruise then around about 200 knots on Mach 0.5, I think. Something like that. Alright, and that's our FMS setup completed. So next up, we can go up to our main displays. We said the initial climb is going to be 5,000, so let's dial that up. 5,000 is in, flight director's on, and we can select the toga mode if we can hit the button, which we can't, okay. So we won't have toga mode available, but that's fine. So references, and the default speeds that I entered, 90, 95 and 100, seem to be rather good. Target speed for the climb, 160, and that's alright. The good thing here is that you can see it remembers the previous entries from the previous flights, so that's quite cool. Alright, and last but not least, we do have FMS navigation, and that's also selected as bearing source. Well, and that's it. So, last but not least, QNH 1013 is correct for today's departure. And then, let's get rid of the sunshade, and then we can go and taxi out to runway 27 for our departure. So, fuel boost pumps on, and transfer pumps auto. Taxi lights on, parking brakes off, and then, let's go. So there is only one way to taxi here in Mannheim, and that's straight out, left-hand turn, and then we end up on Alpha, going all the way down to runway 27 for a full-length departure. So brake check, and the brakes are okay. Lovely scenery. Always keep in mind, this is freeware. They could really have sold this. I would have paid a couple bucks for that. So thank you so much to the developers for producing this absolutely awesome airport for us. Echo Delta Foxtrot Mike is the ICAO code, Mannheim Airport, located around an hour to the south from Frankfurt by car. Alright, let's stop in front of the runway over here. So, engine auto ignition on, auto feather armed. Then, pitot anti-ice is already on, landing lights, strobe lights, and everything is set over here and over here. Something I forgot to mention earlier. Unfortunately, the cabin altitude is fully automatic, so you can see nothing we can change over here. That works fully automatic only. You might also have noticed that I've skipped over a lot of procedures that you would normally have done. That's because most of them are not modeled. Okay, in any case. So, condition levers full forward. And then we are ready to go. Clear for takeoff on runway 27. The wind is 270 at 3. Now make sure you get the right runway and not that first taxiway Foxtrot over here. But we are going to go for the full length. Clear on the approach, not that we can see anything there. So, takeoff run available, 1,120 meters, and that shall be all we'll need. Alright, ready to go. Start on the timer, and then take off. Power set. $70 knots, checked. V1, rotate. And we have a positive climb, gear up. Okay, nav. Level change, and we're passing 800, so left turn out. Looking outside, you can easily see why. Alright, so We can already put the autopilot on. For some strange reason, whenever the autopilot is engaged, it starts pitching down a little bit before it pitches back up and then goes into normal operations. I'm really not sure why it's doing that. The airplane was perfectly trimmed out previously, so it seems to do some retrimming of some sort. Really no idea why it's doing that though. Okay, reducing the prop RPMs. 1600 is possible, 1800 or 1700 is recommendable in order to reduce the noise impact. But we'll be using 1800 today, since we do want to get a little bit of a rate of climb here. So, props around about 1800, propeller sync is on, taxi light coming off, and then let's continue the climb to flight level 230, which is going to be our cruise level today. The airplane is capable of reaching flight level 300, but for a flight that's only around 45 minutes, it's really not necessary to go all that high. Now, pressurization is fully automatic. We can see it down here. The cabin is climbing nicely. Cabin altitude is increasing. It's also automatically picked the destination elevation. The only thing that's not really working is the differential pressure. That's probably just a bug in the indicator though. So, we're reaching the transition altitude. Unfortunately, it's a little bit hard to show today because our QNH is already 1013. But if we had any different QNH, then by simply pushing the button in, you can see it goes back to standard, and with that we are easily set to 1013. Alright. So, we're up in the air, and we can clean up the aircraft a little bit. So auto ignition can be turned off, auto feather off, and on the right hand side over here the landing lights will stay on for the time being. Passengers will also stay seated. Well, and that's our setup completed for now. Let's go back for a few moments and enjoy the excellent look outside our King Air cabin. Let's just take a seat on the right hand side over here, and this is what it looks like. Certainly a view that I would enjoy, provided that I don't have to pay for it. They do also have some sunshades over here, by the way, which do look pretty cool if you just click on the click spot that you have either here or here. Really nicely done. As always, Coronado is providing excellent visual models, and they have done that in the King Air here as well. I could most certainly spend some time in here, that's for sure. Alright, if you want a little bit of silence from the cockpit, you can just close the doors over here, giving you a couple of nice animations and awesome textures everywhere throughout the cabin. This is most certainly a view that I could get to enjoy. Also look at all the little dents in the wing over here. Nice level of detail that went into the modeling. Alright, let's tidy that up again. Where is that click spot? Here it is. And go back to the front. We're about to pass flight level 100, so first things first, close down those doors. And then, reaching 10,000 feet / flight level 100. Let's first of all have a look if there is any good shortcut. I think a direct to Nombo is certainly something we could expect. So, Nombo. Direct to, execute. And here we go. Direct to Nombo. Then let's go ahead and set up our displays for the cruise. So let's go format, and yeah, I do like the map much better. Radar is already selected, even though it's on standby, and We don't really seem to have the controls to actually turn it on, but even though it is on standby, it will still give you returns. So, small bug in the system logic there, but hey. Right, we might need some anti-icing here. Prop anti-ice is coming on, and the landing lights are going off anyway. Alright, so that's our aircraft setup for the cruise. We're climbing at 160 knots, and we will cruise at whatever maximum the airplane can give us. Once we reach cruising altitudes, we're going to reduce the props to about 1600, and that's going to be our cruise power setting. Well, with all of that said, I tend to say, sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight with us. So we're on the approach to Innsbruck. Let's have a very quick look into the approach chart so that we know what we are gonna be up to. For this I am going to use the Navigraph charts once again, since they are just a bit more suited for general aviation flying than the Lido charts included by default in the simulator. So we're currently flying down the VNAV path for the localizer DME East approach into runway 26 in Innsbruck. Now, the frequencies are automatically set by the aircraft. We don't need to take care of that. You can see 111.1 has been set and is the ILS frequency in question. The course will also be set automatically. The only thing we need now is the minimum, which is going to be 3,300 feet. So let's go into the references up here, and then we are going to select Barrowmin and stroll that all the way up to 3,300. And here we are, then. So the minimum is in, then we have the V approach, which is going to be 95, and the VREF at 90, and I think that's going to be just about fine. Actually, I messed that one up, should be 110 and 115 today. And here we go. Alright. So, we do have a couple of check altitudes in the table over here. But all of that is basically going to be automatic, so we don't really have to worry about it during our approach. So during the flight we did get two lights on. That's the left no fuel transfer and right no fuel transfer light. To be honest, not all that much we can do about it. So I'm just gonna ignore those. In the meantime, set QNH. And that's QNH 1013 cross-check, passing 9,900 now. So, landing lights are coming on, the rest of the lights are on, the fasten seatbelt signs are also coming on. And that's it. Now, something that's a little bit strange here is the cabin altitude did not start to descend. I'm not sure why. It does have the landing elevation in here. Suppose we'll ignore those then. Of course, in the real world that would be a no-go item, ignoring the cabin altitude. But so be it. So, we do get the QNH flickering here, so in other words, I forgot to insert the transition altitude on the VNAV descent page. So let's say 1000, I do believe that's the correct transition level here. In any case, we just need something that's a bit higher than our current altitude, so that we can avoid getting that warning down there. Okay, so I will just let the aircraft fly itself onto the final. Then we will be using the approach mode in order to intercept the final approach. But we gotta pay careful attention to our VNAV path, since officially you are not allowed to use the approach mode in Innsbruck outside of 10 nautical miles from the final. But an alternate method for compliance would be to use VNAV. So if we wanted to do that, we could just dial it down to the minimum, so 3,300 is set, and VNAV path is armed, so that way the aircraft can descend on VNAV until we intercept, or until we are within 10 nautical miles. Then we can activate the approach mode and thereby fly down the approach itself. Right, localizer is coming alive and nicely overlaying with the route deviation indication. And then at 19 DME from Oscar Echo Victor, that's the Oscar Echo Victor 19 point, we are going to start the descent. Alright, and that's about as easy as it gets. Now, unfortunately, we can't really select the localizer as nav source anywhere. That means we'll have to live without the DME, unfortunately. Okay, we're reaching 19 DME. The aircraft went into VNAV path, and even though we do get a localizer up there, as mentioned, we shouldn't use it outside 10 DME. So basically, as at the Oscar Echo Victor 9 point, we can engage the localizer. Now, for the first time in this flight, let's actually touch the power levers and reduce the power a little bit so that we can keep our airspeed under control here. Something about 180 knots or so should be nice for our descent along the vertical profile. Pretty much like that. In preparation for the landing, we can go ahead and arm the engine auto ignition, arm the auto feather, which has an inverted click spot, by the way. That's the reason why I accidentally put it into test first. Well, and with that, we're established on the final. And I'll tell you what, the cabin altitude is still bugging around here, so let's just dump it. Well, alright, tell you what. Here we go, just dump it. So, very nice view outside, and very nice view down the valley. One of the things I really like about flying an aircraft like this is you can speed down the vertical profile, and when you go to idle with your power levers, the thing just hits the brakes. Alright, and that's our field in sight down there. We gotta admit, the graphics are just wonderful. Really a step up over the previous Microsoft Flight Simulator. Right then, let's go back inside. So we're inside 10 DME now. Approach mode on, and we have localizer capture, glide slope capture. So the go around goes to 9,500. So go around altitude set. And let's start reducing our power. And just look at how easily the aircraft slows down. About as easy as it gets, isn't it? Also, probably with full forward, that increases the drag a little bit further. So 160 knots is absolutely fine for the time being. But look at that, it is deviating a little bit from the glide slope, which it certainly shouldn't. I'm wondering why the autopilot doesn't attempt to follow the glide there. But okay, I tell you what. Autopilot off, landing clearances received. Then let's fly it into that glide slope manually. Flaps approach. Gear down. And flaps full. Okay, the puppies are in sight, then let's go flight directors off. And we can start to fly it onto the center line. By now we're mostly looking outside for the landing. Speed is slowly bleeding down. Approaching minimum. Minimum, continue. Alright, nicely established on the final. Great view on the city of Innsbruck down here. Really great view on the city. So 115 knots seems to work pretty well on the approach here. And nicely on the glide. So the upcoming Innsbruck scenery is by Indie Builds, and they have done an excellent job on it. But convince yourself as you're about to witness our first landing on this channel in Innsbruck, or at least in Indie Builds Innsbruck. So, Poppy is checked. So, power idle. Small flare. And we'll fly right down onto the runway. Here we go. Manual brakes. I won't use the reverses here since they do not like the noise all too much. And our King Air most certainly doesn't need them. And here we are, vacating the runway to the left. And once we clear the runway, we can clean the aircraft up and thereafter taxi to the parking spot. Gotta say, the graphics look really beautiful, especially in an airplane where you're sitting as low as we are in the King Air over here. Landing the King Air was pretty easy, to be honest. You could see how well we could control the vertical path there and just make it, on the first landing, and make it a real greaser. Okay, there weren't any icing conditions on the way in, so we can retract those flaps, lights are off, and pitot and static port anti-ice is off, the transponder is off anyway, and the weather radar is off anyway. Alright, let's taxi to the parking position. So, while we're taxiing to the parking, let's talk a little bit about my first impressions flying the King Air C90 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, if this was a payware add-on, I would have called it, yeah, okay-ish. Quite a bit of stuff not modeled, but the important things, navigation using the FMS is working quite well, VNAV is working quite well, so lots of the important stuff does work. Now, since this is not a payware add-on, but since this is a default aircraft, I gotta say it is really amazing. Now, the level of default aircraft in Flight Simulator 2024 has dramatically improved over what we received with Flight Simulator 2020. And this is of course partially the result of Asobo hiring third-party developers, or previous third-party developers we gotta say, such as Carinado, developing add-ons like these, and they have delivered a good job. I gotta say, for a default aircraft, the C90 is really awesome. You can get an idea of how a C90 works, even though you are obviously missing a lot of the details, such as a little bit of the electric stuff, the engine stuff, and so on. But overall, a great job, and an aircraft that is a lot of fun to fly. So be sure to check it out, and let me know what you think about the King Air yourself. Now, let's go ahead and park. By the way, did anyone witness that Learjet registration? Delta Cold? Love it. Alright. Parking brake is set, avionic master switch off, taxi lights off, beacon stays on, windshield anti-ice off, and all the rest is off over here already. Alright, shut down. And the engines are running down nicely. So clear all this stuff, and then generators coming off, and now we just gotta wait until the propellers have stopped. And once the propellers have stopped, that's gonna be the end of our flight. Then we can shut down the electrics. Now again, if you know where to find an original King Air C90 checklist, be sure to put it in the comments below so that we can fly it with correct procedures next time. But in any case, this is gonna be it for today's flight. I do hope you all have enjoyed it as much as I did. I surely had a blast flying this. And it is just amazing to fly those default aircraft again and again. And they just have what was payware quality not all that long ago, and actually still is. So, thank you so much for watching. As always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. For now though, thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.